Well, the political consequences of Trump's ban are already being felt. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif has warned that his country has stopped granting entry visas to Americans. The move is in retaliation for Trump's executive order, which has banned people from 7 Muslim-majority nations from entering the United States. The Iranian Foreign Ministry announced the setting up of a committee to study and find proper solutions to the problems of the country's expatriates who have been banned from entering America. Well, let's get you more on that story now. I'm joined live from Washington by CGTN's Daniel Rinches. Daniel, why have these travel restrictions caused such a negative reaction from people in America, and what more fallout can we expect in the United States?
I think you have to understand that America is a divided country politically at the moment. So people were asked in an opinion survey whether they agreed with this travel ban, and 49% of Americans did and 41% didn't. But you'll see in some of the major cities that generally voted for Hillary Clinton that there's where you get the most vociferous support and the most damning criticism of Donald Trump, saying that basically his actions are unconstitutional and go against the aspirations of the founding fathers of the United States and against the law itself. And you're even seeing major technology firms putting millions of dollars into legal funds to try to fight these cases. In one case, Lyft, which is a rival to Uber, the ride sharing, donated a considerable amount of money to the American Civil Liberties Union, which is one of the major organizations fighting this kind of thing. On top of that, you've had the US State Department's officers, officials, around 1,000 of them have now signed a dissent memo suggesting this whole thing runs counter to American interests abroad. But let's not forget, 49% of Americans did agree with what Donald Trump is doing, and therefore I think public opinion is somewhat skewed towards a continuation of the ban, despite all of this opposition.
Now, Daniel, as we've seen across the world, governments, organizations and people have, of course, been condemning the ban, and yet this doesn't seem to have make any difference to the American president. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, Donald Trump does have a team that contains individuals who believe that it's important for the president to be a disruptor. That disruption means that they are anticipating a fairly large amount of pushback for their policies, which they see as important to drive through in the American interest, but which they know will be deeply unpopular, particularly among liberal groups in the United States and many people across the world. Nonetheless, they say this kind of action is justified because, after all, the Obama administration identified these countries when they issued a new ruling about visa waivers in countries where there aren't deemed to be problems. Those visa waiver countries would not apply if those individuals had gone to these 7 countries. So they say the Obama administration identified a vulnerability in the system and that they need 90 days essentially to fix it with this extreme vetting idea.
And finally, we have seen countries like Iran already retaliating against the ban. Do you expect more countries to follow suit in denying visas to traveling Americans abroad?
I think it depends on the individual country's perceptions of their national interests and whether they deem it to be something that's also in their political interest. Clearly, what Donald Trump has done has been an opportunity for a great deal of criticism to be leveled at the new administration. On the other hand, some countries may say, well, if we retaliate, then what are we going to get in return? Don't forget that America still does pretty much control the levers of financial transactions around the world. And if they were to further alienate those countries from Washington, it could be problematic for them in the longer term. So some countries, I think, will say to themselves, okay, we have to, behind the scenes, at least try to cooperate with what they are trying to achieve, which is a higher level of vetting of people who are deemed to be possibly a risk to travel, possibly extremists. But in front of the scenes, I think there are no political gains for most global leaders in supporting this kind of action, given its unpopularity around the world.
All right, Daniel, thank you very much for speaking to us. That was CGTN's Daniel Rinches joining us live from Washington, D.C.